Money!
What Your Bank Doesn't Tell You, a podcast by UMushroom.
Welcome to our podcast series, What Your Bank Doesn't Tell You. I have the big honor today to present two of our favorite guests, Nima and Timo. Nima works with Invesco and Timo works with Neon. And gentlemen, if you would like to shed some words on.
Yeah, sure. So as Luba mentioned, my name is Nima. I'm responsible for the ETF distribution at Invesco in Switzerland since now 7 years. And prior to that, I was many years working in the ETF industry, almost 5 years. So in total, 12, 13 years in the ETF industry. And it's my DNA, so to say. So thanks for having me here.
Thank you, Nima, for joining us. ETF is your bread and butter, and
Yes.
we're very happy to talk about that today.
Yeah, my name is Timo. I'm responsible at Neon for trading. So for those who don't know Neon, maybe it's a banking product. So you can get an account for free, no annual fee, and you can get a card and so on. So it's kind of a typical banking app in Switzerland. Very good UX, of course. And yeah, I'm responsible for trading, which started only last year. So very exciting time also for Neon and for myself, of course.
Thank you, Timo. And the reason why actually we're having Invesco and Neon at the table is because these are two of our partners with whom we make investing with very little money and in a very easy way possible. For those of you out there who wonder how to start, and that's going to be the topic of our podcast, we know that you're facing a lot of fears. We know that it's a different attitude if you start with 10,000 Swiss francs to invest as opposed to start with 100 Swiss francs or 10 francs even to invest. You obviously have a different amount of learning money, and it's much easier to lose, I say, 10 francs than to lose 10,000 francs in an extreme case. Not too long ago, Switzerland was characterized by relatively high trading fees and depot fees. Yeah. And that would not make regular saving and trading for everyone out there on the street, also for those of you who are students or who just started a career, with rather low sums possible. We're very glad that Neon exists. We're also very happy that Invesco has amazing products which facilitate really a very easy start into the investing. And we've been discussing a lot, the three of us, when we were preparing the podcast, why do we have to start investing? And there is often mentioned in our podcast the 8th world wonder, and this is the compounding effect. Yeah. And what did we compute, Nima? I believe we started with 100 francs.
I think what we did was literally you don't go out for one evening, so you save 100 francs one evening per week, and instead of taking the drinks and the next day you have the headache, you invest through Neon Invest, ideally in an ETF such as the FTSE All World. And then the math you did. So what was the result after 20, 30 years?
I think it's amazing. So if you cancel, as Nima mentioned, maybe not once per week, but once per month.
It was 1 month per month. Okay.
Going out for drinks, which it's true, it costs you 100 francs. Put those in an ETF. If you need to bear in mind that on average the equity markets earn along the lines between 6, 8, and 10%, right, depending on the equity market. We assumed an average of 8% net of fees. So if you put every month 100 francs, today in a month additional 100 francs, in another month additional 100 francs, over 40 years, you're going to have something along the lines of 350, 400,000 saved. Wow. And this is due to the compounding yield. It's amazing. We're going to show it also how it looks on a graph. It really grows exponentially, particularly towards the end of the horizon. And a lot of you actually have such an investment horizon. So we really recommend start slow, start small, and it's possible, right?
Definitely, yeah. So it is really kind of a world wonder, as I think Albert Einstein maybe said that. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but yeah, it's very impressive to see those numbers. Yeah.
Why do you think it's possible that nowadays, particularly the young generation out there in their 20s and 30s, can actually really start investing 100 francs per month?
Yeah, I think it's certainly possible and made easier now with the solutions that we have, especially where you don't have like big upfront fees, so you can invest also smaller amounts and still works out for you because you don't pay then like 10% only already for the fees, and then of course you don't have any gains in the end. So now it's much easier with those new solutions to really invest steadily, and as mentioned, if you start early, then you profit the most. So.
I agree, and I remember at our time when we started investing in the early 2000s. Back then, no one actually explained us properly the compounding effect. I mean, we've been working in finance for 20 years, and
I mean, back then, the issue we had was, first of all, there were no real ETFs in the market. So you had to do single stock picking, which is always quite risky. And early 2000, it was the dot-com bubble. So a lot of us burned their fingers, I would say, by just picking the wrong stocks. So that's one advantage. You can diversify invest through an ETF. And then the second point, which Timo mentioned, is really the fees. Yeah, if you compare back then, or even a year ago, you had to pay minimum 9 francs to do an ETF trade. Nowadays, with a solution that Neon created, you can trade without any fees into an ETF. And that makes the difference, yeah? Because 9 francs on 100 francs is 9% of fees. And with a new solution, there's no trading fee, and also on the FX side, you guys have a big advantage. So no fees on that side. So and that's really the added value to investment. The fee level, which is decreased to the lowest possible.
I agree. So basically, we can sum up and say that there are two big innovations which happened in the past 10 years. One is the introduction of the ETFs. And ETFs, we know them also since mid-2000, but 2005, 6, 7, but they were not so spread around. In the last 10 years, this business literally boomed, and it's the cheapest way to invest in the market. It saves you discussions about rebalancing of the equity positions. It saves you transaction costs. It saves you time to bother whether you pick up the right stocks, etc. You just participate on the long-term development of the economy. And it's also a very elegant way to get in a way inflation protection, because equity markets tend to rise in times of inflation. And if you compare to the bond markets, to the instruments which pay a fixed interest rate, and at maturity they pay back the invested amount, we call those fixed we call them bonds, you're actually not protected by default from inflation. So the one innovation was the instruments, right? And the second innovation is the fact that you actually can open a zero-cost account. Yeah. You can trade at very low and in extreme, in certain situations, as we will see, you can have no transaction fees. And I remember back then when we started in the early 2000s, those fees are horrendous. Yeah. We need to group multiple people. We were a group of investors, of students who would invest together, because otherwise it would be economical and not make any sense.
True. Definitely.
So now savings possible thanks to technology and thanks to very elegant products. And there are two questions we are very often approached with by our users, particularly when it comes to education. The one has to do with the type of fees which different brokers actually charge, and also banks. And we figure out, Timo, there are the depot fees. There are also transaction fees, i.e. when you buy a stock or an ETF and when you sell a stock or an ETF. There are also fees when you buy an instrument in a different currency than your domestic currency. So I'm a Swiss-based investor, and if I buy, for example, an ETF which is investing in another currency, let's say dollar or Great British pounds, then I need to first do something which we call an FX transaction. I need to change my Swiss francs into dollars or Great British pounds. And there are also fees on this transaction too. Very often they're not very, very obvious by different brokers. There are inactivity fees. If I don't trade regularly, some brokers charge those type of fees. There are fees which brokers charge when you close an account, and also there are fees which brokers charge when you transfer certain amount of money on your brokerage account, or particularly when you take out certain amount of money from a brokerage account.
Exactly.
So the major fee types are depot fees, transaction fees, and foreign exchange fees. Yeah. How about Neon in this context?
Yeah, so as you hear, it's quite complex sometimes to figure out which fee actually exists or what is charged, because some of them, like the transaction fee, it can be this you see immediately, or hopefully you see it immediately, where you can see, okay, you buy something and then you see, okay, this is the fee attached to this order. And then there are more indirect fees that you don't see immediately. And that could be, for example, that are charged once a year. That is like the custody fee that you mentioned, or deposit fee. It's sometimes really hard to figure out. And there's the FX, sometimes the FX. So when you change, you have to change the currency to buy something. If you buy a US share, for example, an Apple share, this can be really hard to figure out. And we wanted to make this as simple as possible to understand. So we introduced a flat fee, so to say. So we really only charge you on the orders. So you don't have any fees on deposit. You don't have any fee, for example, if you want to have a tax statement or anything like that, which also can cost. That's more the hidden costs. So what we have is, for us, with Neon, you just pay 0.5% for all ETFs and all Swiss shares. So everything that's in Switzerland and ETFs, obviously. For some, it's free. So we have a few Invesco products where you don't pay anything. And for foreign stocks, you pay just the 1%. So it's really flat. It's very easy to understand. You see it upfront when you do the trade, so you already know what's coming in terms of fee. So we try to be very transparent with that and make it easy to see what you actually pay. And then it's also easier to figure out what is my performance in the end. And it's not like you don't have to put the 10 different factors together to see, okay, this was end of the year charged and this was this and then. And
it makes life very easy.
Make it very easy and also transparent. So that's always the mission of Neon, to make stuff also a bit transparent. So that's also a bit the mission that we followed in Neon Invest.
I find it very easy and very self-explanatory indeed.
Can I just add? So basically, if you trade via Neon, the FTSE All World, the MSCI World Paris Aligned, the MSCI Emerging Market Paris Aligned, Global Clean Energy, and Biotech, they're all in Swiss franc. So there's no FX cost for you because they are listed via BX Swiss in Swiss franc. And there is a fee waiver, so no transaction costs on these ETFs. The only thing you have to pay is the Swiss stamp tax, which you don't come around.
This is a legal requirement, that's true. And another topic which is very important and which goes hand in hand with fees is the difference between actively investing funds and passively investing funds, i.e. actively managed funds and ETFs. Nima, would you like to shed some words on that? Because that's also cost related.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you take the US market, there are barely any active manager outperforming the US market, but still you pay fees of 1.5%, 2% for the active managers. If you take the ETF, you pay 0.05% fees on S&P 500 or MSCI USA, which are the leading and main indices in the US. So for that market, clearly you would be better off by not paying these high fees and going via the ETF route. But there are also cases where active management deserve the fees. I really say deserve, because they do the stock picking in small cap areas or in certain emerging markets where active management is adding value. There it's okay to pay the fees because you are really adding value. But for all the other markets where it's tough to outperform because they're super efficient, it's the ETF and super liquid, it's the ETF route to go. And you save clearly the fees there via the ETF.
That's a very valuable insight, and thank you for sharing that with us, both of you. We had a very interesting topic which we discussed. And the topic is about typical mistakes which young investors do. Timo, what is from your point of view?
I mean, the easiest one to recognize is if you don't invest at all. So that's the one to start early. But there's a lot of others also. Like some follow too much just the market trends, follow maybe other people just without informing themselves. So it's, of course, important that you also look into what you invest in the end, know a bit the product, look at the costs, of course. So that's also very important. And also maybe don't try to time the market too much, because that's also a beginner's mistake, that they say, okay, now it's very high, I wait a bit, and then it goes only up and up and up. And in the end, you buy at a higher price, even though you wanted to time it. So you have at some point a lower price, and then you end up losing money on that comparatively. So that's certainly also a beginner's mistake that a lot of people make, and still like maybe experienced people maybe get into this trap and try to time it, and they think, okay, now I know the trend is coming, and then it goes only up and then they're too late.
Yeah, I mean, literally, it's like FOMO, fear of missing out. That's exactly what you say. The timing, market is up already. Everyone thinks, okay, I have to be in, and then you go in, and then it decreases in value again because I don't know, there are some certain factors to it. So literally, don't try to time the market. Just invest on a regular basis every month in a broadly diversified basket, such as an ETF. And don't sell, don't panic if markets go down, because actually it's good. You have a long time horizon, and stay invested and even invest more, because by that you can invest cheaper because markets went lower, so you get more for your buck. And so that's I would say the secret sauce of investing.
I can't agree more, and I can't stress often enough the importance of being invested, and as you say, on a regular basis, because the two biggest mistakes I personally did was not to start investing early, partially because instruments were missing, partially because of the fees back then, and the other thing is the fear of missing out. And this is those are a type of fears which are deeply psychological, and even experienced investors do those mistakes.
Yeah.
Not to mention beginners. So the best way is start investing. And we've been often asked, what is the big difference? Because the investing mentality of rich people, because we've been working, both Tony and I were working on the so-called ultra high net worth desks of Credit Suisse, and me also in Julius Baer. So question comes naturally, what's the difference between rich people and people and regular people in their investing patterns? There is one big difference. It's not about where they're invested, it's the fundamental difference that wealthy people are by default invested, and people who are actually with rather low or middle-sized income, to speak in banking terms, tend not to be invested enough. They're underinvested and they're missing out indeed. What we've been also wondering, and this is something which we observe a lot, right, Timo? We on our platform and you on Neon, we've been asking ourselves, are there any differences in how people invest, independence of age, for example, or in depending on whether it's a female, male, or a different other gender as we have them nowadays? Did you observe any differences?
So the difference were quite small overall. I think we did some analysis now on our data. Of course, we don't have that much data because we just started last year, of course.
Feels like last week.
Feels like last week.
Time flies when you're having fun.
But what we can see is it's quite steady throughout all the age groups. It's also a bit surprising. So we looked at, for example, Bitcoin products that we have. And there I would have thought that young people invest in Bitcoin because it's kind of a trend and they see it on maybe TikTok, YouTube, whatever. They invest in Bitcoin. But actually, for our investors, it was the older ones comparatively to the average investor who invests in Bitcoin, which I think is quite fascinating.
Yeah.
What old? What means old?
Not old, but comparative. So I think
Is like the 39 or?
Anyway, that's a cash question.
I think that's around 39. But so I'm not saying like people are old, but like comparatively to our average investor, it's like 2 years older.
Oh yeah.
In average, so that's quite interesting.
You saved it, Timo.
Had to. So that's certainly interesting. Of course, what you can see, like older people invest more per trade. So it's clear they just have more cash maybe to spend.
Natural,
so they save just more from the amount. That's kind of obvious.
And what is the median age, Timo, on Neon? What would you say?
So we have median age around 39.
How interesting.
So it's actually not that young. Or you
It's
could
older
imagine
than
it's.
I thought it would be
most
a lot
people
younger, to be honest.
think like we're a neobank. We have probably like 25 as
Yeah,
an
that's
average.
what I
I would
thought.
assume 30,
but,
35, but that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Also, some customer aged with us. So very loyal customer base. So of course, they also stuck to Neon and also grew a bit older with us. So
That's great. Oh, that's amazing.
So what is the oldest? Can you disclose?
I don't know if I would.
Okay.
Pretty close to 100.
Oh yeah, really?
Oh, so cool.
Wow. Okay.
That's
That's cool.
amazing.
So-
That's really amazing. We actually see the same very interesting patterns as well. To our surprise, and we have relatively equally weighted representation of female and male, maybe because we're two female founders that can have an impact. Slightly more men than women. And we don't see any difference as well in the investing patterns. We have men who invest very typical. The question is, do guys invest more aggressively? That's not the case. It's very much character, we would say.
Okay.
It's interesting to see.
Right.
And age-wise, this is also very interesting. There is also no pattern. We have young people who select ETFs, surprisingly, because as you know, we work with a lot of the universities, with different young people in education, and there are a lot of them who are actually ETF affine. And then we have people in their late 50s who have crypto on the platform. So it's interesting. It's completely, you can't really say that age and gender have an influence. But what has an influence, and that's very interesting, we have 8 different investor types on the platform, depending on your risk aversion, degree of knowledge, and depending also on your attitude to money. And we gave them very funny names. So we have people who are rather neutral to money, can be either a happy professor if they're experienced, or I think the other would be obviously a soon-to-be professor or something along those lines. Then we have the saver type of people who really think money is very scarce. And there we have I'm afraid of the world or responsible nerd.
Oh, that's interesting. So like personalized.
Personalized, yes. And then we have the ones which I always try to get into. And after 10 attempts of solving the test, we have a quiz to solve to determine your type of. It's the ones who actually are very much spendthrift and try to, and have a very, rather the attitude towards money that it's there and you should use it and you should enjoy it. And there you have like, I know how to gamble. For those who are really experienced, you know how to consciously take risk, and then the ones who are you only live once, who are not experienced but have this attitude. And you have investor profiles, famous investors attached to that. And there we see interesting patterns in how people invest, but it's also because it's really linked to the attitude to money and risk return.
And you also have objectives. For instance, I want to buy a property,
Yes.
so that's okay.
This is one of the things, that's a very good question. This is one of the things which we do on the platform with our investment calculator. Now we're speaking about investing, right? But we naturally, subconsciously assume we're talking about long-term investing because we mentioned the compounding effect. But yesterday we had someone who came and told us, I would like to actually invest to finance holidays. And that's a different type of investing because it's short-term. And you, by nature, depending on how much money you want to generate, you need to take more risk. And this relationship between your capacity and readiness to lose a certain amount, which is represented by the risk, and what you expect in return is something which we represent through the calculator on our platform. And the tenor of years for which you're investing.
Cool. Sounds really good.
It's fun.
To be honest, we work on similar topics, and because we see a lot of them, because investors, they are not only free prototypes.
Yeah.
You have 8, 9, 10, some more. So it must be really your personal portfolio.
Yeah.
So no, I really like this idea.
Thank you.
It's more than the standard.
And it's worth doing the test. I mean, I don't know if you've tried it, guys. I recommend it's a lot of fun. We laugh a lot to do.
I have to do that.
I'm curious where I land.
Yeah.
It's cool to see. And what is also worth to mention is that the three of us set up 2 portfolios together.
Yes.
Would you like to share some words on those?
Yeah, I mean, we did 2 portfolios, one for the beginner. Yeah, so with one ETF, so there is no rocket science to it. It's just one ETF. It's the FTSE All World. And what is the FTSE All World? It sounds fancy. It's just one ETF investing into all global equities. So more than 4,200 securities in more than 50 countries in developed markets and emerging markets. So you get with one vehicle, which you can have for 5 francs, that's just 5 francs, the full exposure to the entire market. And it's the cheapest product as well, with 0.15% fees, which is almost nothing. And then you could, or you can trade it also for free via Neon Invest. So that's one portfolio. And then we said, okay, that's really for the beginners. If you want to have a bit more spice, we said, okay, there is the core, which is the FTSE All World. And then we have the mega trends. So we put around a few satellites which is the blockchain ETF. Clearly a big mega trend which we are facing, and so it's around the ecosystem of the blockchain. Then we have biotech, which is also clearly a mega trend. Then the third one, it's from out of the sustainable space. It's the global clean energy. It affects all of us also over the next few decades. Clearly one mega trend. And what was the fourth one? I forgot.
I think it's
Biotech, I mentioned. Yeah, I
Biotech,
think
clean
that's
energy,
it.
and FTSE World.
And FTSE World, yeah.
FTSE World is
that's
inside.
the
the
core.
base remains the same, and then you add the three.
Yeah, so the core satellite approach, and then that's the second portfolio. So we are really excited to see which one performs how.
For those of you who are interested, you're more than welcome to see them there on my profile. And the one is called Simple Start, and the other one is called My Growth Portfolio. 2 ETFs portfolios, which we are going to comment on regular basis. And what is also worth mentioning, right? I think FTSE World could be traded with Neon at zero cost, if I recall correctly.
Exactly, yeah.
I think you can mimic the entire portfolio with Neon Invest for free.
Currently, you can do the whole for free. The blockchain is not that, but
blockchain is true.
The other ones you can do for free. So.
Yeah.
This is great. So for those of you who want to try it, there is also an opportunity how you can really invest in such type of products, and you can look. You're welcome to visit on Neon and see what ETFs can be traded. Invesco has a partnership with Neon exactly for the idea to stimulate and to inspire young people to start investing early and to start saving early, and that all at zero cost, right? This is the mission.
We call it democratization of investments. So everyone can invest without any big hurdles. So that's
a very good idea, and it's something very needed. And we also keep stressing that pretty much in every second, third podcast. We don't know what's going to happen with the generation of our generation with the retirement packages.
Correct.
Not to mention the generations after us. And if you don't really learn to save on top of it, poverty in age is one very, very big topic, and it's actually a topic across also developed markets, not only across emerging markets. And we've been often asked what to do. I need to reallocate at a point of time because Switzerland is an expensive country to live, Germany is an expensive country to live compared to other opportunities, etc., etc. And we have an aging population, right? Yeah. So this has a huge impact on the redistribution of wealth. And we're going to do regular updates on our portfolios. So we would like to welcome you to join us also on our next podcasts. And if you have questions, you're more than welcome to write to us at hello@umushroom.com. And we're happy to answer immediately. We talked a lot about the different investor profiles. And for those of you who want to find out what type of investor type you are, and who else from the famous investor is like you, please go on UMushroom.com and do the quiz. It'd be true to figure out how that can improve and help you on your investor journey. The link to the quiz is also given in the description below. So, thank you, Timo.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nima.
Thanks a lot, Ruben.
And we're looking forward to welcome you back with us again.
Money!
What Your Bank Doesn't Tell You, a podcast by UMushroom.